I mean, what hands down has to be the worst feeling this morning is the fact that it should be 9-3, and instead it's 8-4. So why don't we break down what went wrong towards the end as LSU is victorious over Texas A&M?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, everybody, and welcome back into another episode of Locked On Aggies, presented by the Locked On Podcast Network. Cole Thompson back here in the driver's seat talking all things Texas A&M, and today, why don't we go ahead and break down what in the world happened in Baton Rouge as the Bayou Magic somehow gives Ed Orgeron a fond farewell over Texas A&M. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. You can check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are growing every single day. I am giving you daily content. I am very excited about this upcoming offseason. There is so much to discuss. A lot of recruiting stuff coming up, NBA stuff, so make sure you stay with us every single step along the way. As always, I am the host of the show, and I love public feedback. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson, name right down there below. Any single time that you can give me something that you like, something you hate, tell me on Twitter, tell me on social media, message me, let me know, and I will add it into the mix. Secondly, make sure you're following Locked On Aggies. Locked On Aggies is your number one source for all things 12 man related content found here on LOP. You can subscribe on iTunes, listen on Spotify, and if you can't do any of that, listen live every single day at LockedOnPodcast.com. Finally, make sure you're reading all my great work at allaggies.com. It is one of the many websites that I work for Fan Nation, mostly covering college football this season. That has been a big preface of mine. I cover A&M exclusively for that site, so I'm very excited to see where we go with this, so make sure you're sticking along the way. 27-24, final score. That should not be it. It should be 24-20. That is the best way I can put it. It should be 24-20, and it honestly should be more. It really should for Texas A&M, because the reality of the factor is when you look back at that game, and I was there, I was in Baton Rouge, I got to watch it live, I got to see it unfold, I was on the sideline when that touchdown happened in the back of the end zone from Max Johnson. That's not the whole story. There's a lot of things that went wrong in that, and we're going to break down a few of them today. I'm going to probably break down a few more tomorrow, but I really want to focus on that because we also got to talk a little bit about LSU, we got to talk about Oklahoma, we got to talk about a couple of the other SEC programs, so we're going to get into that a little bit today. We're going to get into a little bit of that tomorrow, but let's start with the main one. There were a lot of factors that went wrong in this game. For starters, play calling. I have given Jimbo Fisher a lot of credit, and I do believe Jimbo Fisher is a great coach. I understand when people are looking at the Kevin Sumlin situation. I understand when people are looking at, the win total from year 1 to year 4, and I get that. I do. I understand that you're saying that we're paying a guy $9.1 million to basically be Kevin Sumlin 2.0. That's not true. I will say that when you look back at the start of the season, I told you one thing. The offensive line has got to figure it out. The offensive line has got to be in rhythm. The offensive line has got to be in sync. The offensive line has got to be the answer. And it wasn't at a lot of times during the regular season. So having 2 losses and finishing 10-2 was very plausible in my opinion. 9-3 was also very plausible. 8-4 wasn't. 8-4 wasn't. And even though you are a little bit of a rebuilding roster, you're replacing Kellen Mond, you're replacing 4 of your offensive linemen, you're replacing a few wide receivers, you don't have that level of consistency. Your defense is your bread and butter. Your run game is your X factor. Those are things that you have established over the years that have been strong and in your favor. That's not the case. That was actually the furthest thing from the case. If I were to tell you that Zach Calzada was one of the few bright spots in the game, you would probably laugh at me because he did miss a couple throws. He also had a couple of bullet throws that were right on the money that were dropped by wide receivers. I counted 6 drops. I think that the stat line produced only 4. Even Jimbo Fisher said, no, we had way more than 4. I counted 6. I counted 2 from Jalen Preston. I counted 2 from Moose Muhammad. I counted 1 from Jalen Weidemeyer. I counted 1 from Devon A-Chain. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm like 99.9% sure I counted 6 or 7. That was a big part of it. Calzada also made a couple of errant throws. He also missed a couple of reads. There was on 3 different occasions where I looked down the field and I'm reading the defense and I'm going, okay, 5 is open, 8's open. Go hit the slant pattern. It's a deep crossing route to number 0. Go find an I. Smith. And he does the dump pass. Still, if that's it, you got to include the drops in there. There was a lot of inconsistencies offensively on this game. The other thing, no run game. That is a big deal for Texas A&M. And I even said this. I was on Texas Radio, and I brought this up to David Nuno. I said that A&M has to trust its run game. And going into the third quarter, they had 10 rushing yards. Spiller surpassed 1,000 on the season. He did. He got past 1,000 in the regular season. He had 25. He had, I think, about 18 of those 25 on one drive. A-Chain had 42 yards, if I'm mistaken. He originally had 56, and then, the loss of yardage on plays. He had, I think, 40 of those on one drive. They won in certain drives, and that was it. They didn't win in monumental moments. And in the end, A&M did its part enough to win until they didn't. You look at the way the defense played, at least the front seven. Another great game. I mean, Tyree Johnson was immobile the entire game. And what happened? A&M basically said, we don't care. We are still going to be able to play our style of defense. And Michael Clemens, 3.5 sacks. I counted 4. I guess they counted the one with McKinley Jackson as part of a half sack on the day, leading the team. I mean, he was unblockable against both sides of the line. He lined up on the left side. He lined up on the right side. He did a fantastic job finding ways to win at the line of scrimmage and then working his way back in. I counted twice where on 2 of his sacks, he had the outside leverage. He was completely locked, basically shucked and swim underneath the guy to get back in and bring Max Johnson out from behind. Like a strike, like a cobra. That is something that you've wanted to see all season from this defense. DeMarvin Leal had another really, really good game. Lots of pressure up the middle from the 3 technique. When he played on the outside, he had a sack. You also had, I think Jaden Peavy had a sack in that game, if I'm not mistaken. And then Damani Richardson with the safety blitz. What a play. I mean, absolutely, what a play. That was one of the best hits I've seen all season from Damani. They've done their part with the pass rush. LSU, they could feel that pass rush coming and closing the gap. The secondary was a problem. Because I know that everyone wants to talk about the Jenkins touchdown with 20 seconds left. Jalen Jones got bullied. Jalen Jones got bullied a lot in that game against what I would call lesser tier wide receivers than he is a lesser tier cornerback. Jones, to me, is a premier cornerback, and I know that he's the number 1 on the team, but you look at the way that he played in this game, he had a really good pass breakup, he had a really good deflection, almost jumped a route, and then got burnt twice, and then allowed 2 big-time plays, including the 28-yard touchdown, which, again, bad location. I get it. He was already, the thing is, everyone's saying, well, he made an athletic play on the ball. Yeah, but the wide receiver was behind him the entire time. He made a play because if he was trying to break it up with the last bit of a fingertip because he was wide open. Jenkins in the back of the end zone for the 28-yard score. That was the play. Really struggle performance from the younger players on the defense as well. Really bad news for one of these guys, Edgerrin Cooper. We have no idea what his status is. I was able to ask Jimbo about it after the game. He said that they know that he's going to be out for a minute. They don't know how bad of an injury it is. So that means his season's done. I don't know what it is, but his season is done. It's 100% just over. That's a big problem for the bowl game. But there's so much that A&M could have done differently in this game. The way that I look at it, the good, Zach Calzada did not have a turnover. You cannot blame Zach Calzada in this one. The other good, they were able to get 7 total sacks on the day. I think 18 total pressures. That's a really good number. If you get 7 sacks on the day, you're supposed to win that football game. The bad, you allowed a late touchdown, and you allowed too many big-time plays by insignificant wide receivers. Tyrion Davis-Price was able to continuously move the ball without question at that second level of the defense, and then when Edgerrin Cooper was out, it was game over. Aaron Hansford had no answers, Andre White had no answers, there was literally no answers. If he got past that line of scrimmage, it was not gains of 2, it was gains of 8, it was gains of 11, it was gains of 14. And then the straight-up ugly, the play calling. The play calling from Jimbo Fisher, this was his worst play calling game that I have seen. I've been to A&M games for the last year and a half. This is the worst one. I do not know what was going through his mind. I do not know what was going through Daryl's mind. I don't know why somebody on the offensive staff didn't say, we need to change it up. They are easily getting this. I mean, little dump passes were working half the time. And then the run game was actually working in the third and fourth quarter. And then you like to go straight to the pass. That to me makes absolute no sense. That to me makes absolute travesty of play calling. And that's where I understand where A&M fans are sitting this morning going, did we just pay $9.1 million for Kevin Sumlin 2.0? You didn't, and I'll walk you off that ledge on another day, maybe today if we have time. But that is why A&M is not going to a Premier Bowl game. I'll tell you that right now. That's why. The 3rd and 2 call, the one where it ended up being the last offensive play of the game that meant anything before A&M was down, I did not understand that play whatsoever. I don't. And then when you watch the way the box was crowded and how they were playing in space, I don't know how you don't go ahead and just run it up the middle with Spiller or try to just get right off the C gap, get it to A-Chain, and then ice the clock. It's the same thing as like if you go back and you watch the Auburn game against Alabama, if Tank Bigsby does not go out of bounds, Auburn wins that football game. Auburn wins that game because Alabama has to start using their timeouts. Alabama has to start literally playing with intention, and they get one more first down. Game over. We don't need to worry about a 4 overtime game. It's the same thing. If A-Chain gets that first down, you will eat up the clock. You will get a first down. You then will at least give them, if anything, maybe 32 seconds left? They wouldn't get that. They would not get that 32 seconds left. And even if they did, they would have had to start calling timeouts after that play. So A&M would have likely won that game. That's the ugly. That's the straight up ugly. And there's so much more to talk about. Is this a good season? Is this a bad season? But before we do that, this episode of Locked On Aggies is brought to you by Prize Picks. All right, college football fanatics, heads up about Prize Picks. It's your daily fantasy college sports made easy. I love it, and I know you will too. It is the leader in college sports daily fantasy that offers more college football props than anybody else in the world and offers 5-star players to mid-major level players every single step along the way. All you do is deposit $100. You can get up to a $100 bonus back in your deposit. So say you donate $50, you'll get 50% back. Say you donate $100, you'll get 100% back when using the promo code Locked On. You can pick up to 2 to 5 players over under projections, win up to 10 times the amount of entry. It's all mixed sports, so it's not just football. You can also do basketball. College baseball going to be right around the corner. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less, and the offer withdrawals are ridiculously easy to go get. Stop sitting on the sidelines today. Use the promo code Locked On and join in on the action with Prize Picks. Fantasy sports made easy. Locked On Aggies, presented by the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. All right, let's continue to go down this line. I want to go back to that 3rd and 2 play because that 3rd and 2 play is one of those plays where I look and I just wonder what went through the head. I really do, because the run game was working, and there was a really good question asked about after the game about why did you not go back to running it with Devon A-Chain? Because I get why not running it with Isaiah Spiller. I totally do. He's not having his best performance. Jimbo said that he was 100% fine. They just were prepared for number 28. You watched on a multitude of occasions. They were not prepared for number 6. And don't get me wrong, Damon Clark was a very good player. I think I counted his total 13 tackles in the game, 13 or 14. Really good job. Silent to silent. Was able to really contain, especially that A and B gap. Read and reaction. Nice job on that part. But you look at the rest of that. When C-Gap was open, he was nowhere near there. When A-Chain was able to get past that first level of defense and he had to go a one-on-one situation, he won, I think, 95% of those matchups. He literally did everything possible going down to the wire to get this done. To me, that was the most amazing part. To me, that was the part where I was sitting there going, wow. Yeah, that's what you want. That's what you want to see all dang day. And the fact that you didn't want to go ahead and run it on that situation. The worst that happens when you run it is you don't get the first down. You eat the clock. I don't think LSU's calling timeout at that point. I don't know why. I just don't. But when you throw it, you stop the clock automatically. And then you lose 4 yards on the play. So it's a really convoluted session. And I get it. There's also the play where, SEC officials had to look it over about possibly the fumble recovery. Didn't hear the whistle. Shut the ball back by Demani Richardson. We can go into that later. We really can. But even if Jimbo Fisher was given that play, the play calling still was off all game. I didn't agree with a couple of the passes. I didn't agree with a couple of the runs. I definitely did not agree with a lot of the third down situations. A&M has struggled immensely on third down this year, which I never thought I would say because of last year. They were the most efficient team in the FBS when it came to third down conversions. And that's a fact. They actually were the best team. They converted 75% of the time. And now they were somewhere around 51 or 53 or something like that. They struggled converting. Half the time, plays were over. And that's a testament to what the offense truly is. Now, again, To preface back, Calzada, I don't know what to make of him. I can't blame him for this loss. I can say he had a lot of errant throws. I've said this multiple times. Dude's got one freaking speed. Learn to hone it in and get some touch and poise on the ball. If you can do that, you probably are the starter going into next season. But because if you have one speed, your wide receivers are having to prepare for 80-mile fastballs coming in at 5-yard slants, at 5-yard curl routes. They're also preparing for 80-mile fastballs coming in at 50-yard bombs, but keep in mind, it's like playing baseball. The trajectory of the ball is going to slow the inertia down, so when it finally gets to your hands, it actually is a nice cushion to where it's hitting you in stride. That's okay to throw it at that speed. At this where, boom, you want accuracy. You don't want power. Yes, it's nice to have power and zip on the ball because if you're getting it in faster, but you also need to make sure it's getting in at an accurately display level. And again, there were a few throws that when you look at Zach, those are just straight up drops. The Moose Muhammad play on the, 18 seconds left or whatever it was, when he probably should have caught it for like a 28-yard gain that would have put him at midfield to at least set up maybe a chance to get this game to go to overtime with the field goal from Seth Small. That's on Moose. Like that's a play on Moose Muhammad. That's not a play on Zach. But the Jalen Preston one on third down, that's the one that keeps going back into my mind. I'm watching that play and I'm like, okay, it's third down. If you're going to hit Preston, hit him in stride and hit him where it's an easy ball. That is like rule number one if you're a quarterback's coach. Make it an easy ball. That's the first and second and only thing you want to do to make it work for your coaches. Like if you're a coach watching that from the sideline, the only thing you want to do is make it so easy for your wide receivers to pick up the first down. Zach did that sometimes, and Zach did it some other times, but he wasn't the biggest problem. The offensive line, and I get it, young players on the road, and again, this is another thing that we really got to talk about with the road struggles this season. When you look at those players, they're only going to get better over time. A&M, Ruben Fothery, if he moves to left tackle, great. If he stays at right tackle, totally okay with that. You got Trey Zahn coming, back for another year. You got a couple of young players still coming up. You have a lot of young talent on this roster to where you can probably find that replacement very quickly. Those are things that you just look at and you go, okay, that's fine for now, but it doesn't fix the situation in the moment. It's great for the future, but what about now? Fothery had a decent game. Bryce Foster struggled. Bryce Foster immensely struggled. And I would say Layden Robinson, when he was out there, because if he did miss a couple snaps because he was hurt, had some inconsistencies as well. They were able to get pressure on Calzada up the middle. I was actually very surprised that Jameer Johnson had as good a game as he did. I thought he would be the weak link because if he's been the weak link all season, he actually played pretty well. I'll argue that he was one of the more consistent. He still allowed a few pressures, I think 3, but he didn't allow a sack. Fothery, I think, was the best of the bunch of the offensive line, and that includes Kenyon Green, but everyone else has their inconsistencies. Everyone struggled at times during this game. And to me, that's a big deal. Now let's also talk about the road losses in general. A&M at home is a completely different team than they are on the road. Because if I were to tell you that they were 8-4 this year, you maybe would believe me, but you would believe those losses came to Ole Miss, which I think a lot of people would guess at this point. Probably, I would say Alabama. And then you would say, they played probably Kentucky this year. Or they played, they had a weird upset against LSU, or maybe like an Arkansas, I get that. Or you would say probably they played Georgia. But no, they lost to Mississippi State. And they lost to Arkansas in a neutral site. And they almost lost to Colorado in week 2 on the road at Empower Field. So when they were playing at Kyle Field this year, they were dominant. I will say that hiccup game against the likes of Mississippi State, to me, that's actually more of just getting adjusted to playing the air raid system than it is anything else. It's not to me bad game by A&M. It's more so just you got to get used to the air raid. That's just kind of something you have to do. And when you can't do that, then that becomes a problem. So that to me was always the lot. But every other game, great game against Alabama. Great game against South Carolina. Great game against, Auburn. They actually played really good at home. And on the road, they were a whole different team. Sometimes that's the case. Do you guys remember back in 2019 when A&M had to play at Clemson and at LSU and at Georgia? Do you remember that time they had to do those games? It felt very similar to that. It was a team that had the pieces to be very good, but they were missing something. I don't know what. I don't know if it was, if it was just something crazy. They were missing a piece. There was something off about this A&M team this year. and it was road games. Road games made it very challenging. A loss, and honestly, a really degrading loss at Ole Miss. A near loss at Colorado. A loss in Arlington to a loss in Arlington to Arkansas and Tiger Stadium. Jimbo Fisher now is 0-2 at Tiger Stadium with Texas A&M. Those are things that only time can probably help. And honestly, I do not know when that time is coming. Hopefully, it will be in the coming months because of next season is going to be a very monumental year for Texas A&M. This is it. The putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But backswing, your hat falls off near your eyes, and somehow you're running out of your business. Poor visibility can be a big-time relying spreadsheets of outdated financial software. To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to help your food grow with visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR planning, budget, and much, much more. Over 27,000 businesses already use NetSuite, and right now, you can put an end to yours with NetSuite offering a once-in-a-lifetime kind of financing program to get those upgrades ready. Just go to netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA, LOCKEDONNCAA. That's right. Don't forget the second A. Head over to netsuite.com for this special end-of-the-year financing #1 financial system ground grade. It's netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA. It is here, the beat of the year. It's Cyber Monday. Go to BuiltBar.com. This episode is Locked On Aggies is, of course, sponsored by Built Bar. Go to Built Bar and in your mouse, click on at least 20% off everything you can get. That's 20% off everything delicious and nutritious. And keep in mind, Built Bar is fantastic. They have every flavor you want. And they've also added in a few new caramel ones. So caramel almond, caramel delight, caramel caramelized candle, check. Almonds, check. Delight, double check. And you can also get the new puff bars. That means you can get white chocolate cheesecake, a yummy protein treat filled with a marshmallow center covered in white chocolate. 'Tis the season to save money and go get yourself a nutritious treat to get back on the health kick whenever you feel like it. Go visit BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you will get 20% off. That's right. 20% off at Built Bar. Locked 20 for BuiltBar.com. Locked On Aggies, presented by the Locked On Podcast Network. All right. So I'll talk more on this tomorrow, and it'll probably be about a good, a bad, and the ugly. But let me ask you guys. Do you think this was a good year for Texas A&M? It's a legitimate question. It really is. Because I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that say it wasn't. And I will be one of them. It wasn't a good year for Texas A&M. But I also will say I came in a skeptic. I did have A&M beating Alabama this year. I did have them losing to Ole Miss this year. I thought that they were going to go 10-2. I thought they were going to blow one other game. I didn't know which one. I thought maybe it would be Arkansas. Maybe it would be Auburn. I thought they were going to be a 10-2 team. And the reason was because of the offensive line. You do not understand how important it is to fix the trenches so quickly. And losing a guy, that's easy. You can go ahead and find a replacement. You can go ahead and shift some things around. Your left tackle maybe has to move to right tackle because you have an up-and-coming left tackle. You got to move your right tackle to right guard. That's an easy fix. Your center is really good, but you have a really good emerging 5-star coming in. Play him at the center, move the center to guard. It's an easy fix. Replacing 4 offensive linemen is not an easy fix. It's actually one of the hardest things to do. And I would say that besides finding a franchise quarterback in the NFL, rebuilding an offensive line to the max is probably the second hardest thing to do. Because they're responsible of protecting the quarterback. But on top of that, they have to be elite at opening running lanes for your run-based offense. Texas A&M, as much as you want to admit that they have really good wide receivers up and coming, guys like Damon Demas, he showed enough this year to where I think that he could have a breakout season in 2022. Moose Muhammad, I do think that even though he had that big-time drop, it would be hard for me to consider him anything less than an up-and-coming superstar at the number 2, maybe even the number 1 position. And then you have guys like Cleve Brown, a few others in the building. You can do a lot with this team. This is a run team. Isaiah Spiller, Devon A-Chain. And when you take away the running aspect of the games and you force Zach Calzada to be the entire bit of pressure, a guy who can't run, and you saw it. I know he's been dealing with injuries left and right, but you saw it. He can't run. He can't. Twice he fell down. and took the sack instead of trying to run. Like, he can't run. When that's the case, you're a limited team. And that was really it all year for A&M. They had their moments. They had a lot of good moments. The South Carolina game, the Auburn game, the Prairie View A&M. I mean, I'll throw that one in there, I guess. Arkansas, at times, they were really good at moving the ball. But when they weren't able to move the ball against Mississippi State, really until the third quarter against Ole Miss, LSU, you watched what happened. You watched A&M throw the season away. I thought 10-2 would have been considered a good year for A&M. I think 8-4 is probably, looking back, more of a reasonable, knowing what the offensive line was going to be, knowing that Haynes was going to be out for the entire year. 8-4 was probably a really good year, but that just shows that at any given moment, the fact that if you don't have a complete roster, you are screwed. 9-1 last year was a stellar year, and I do believe that A&M can next year be 11-1, 10-2, 12-0 possibly. There's a lot to like. But when you lose 4 offensive linemen, and you lose the guy that is clearly QB1 in the battle, 8-4, 9-3, I would actually consider that probably a really good year knowing the circumstances. But now knowing that that the inconsistencies that we saw, consistently the inconsistencies, that's another clue word, the consistency of the inconsistency, A&M is in trouble. Like, A&M at 8-4 was probably one of the better cases. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Aggies. Make sure you're following us on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson and at Locked On Aggies. I'll be back tomorrow's show to talk a little bit more about what to expect moving forward. What are some bowl games that Texas A&M could be in? And of course, we got to talk about the new SEC hires. We also want to talk a little bit about Oklahoma, who's coming to the SEC in a few years. What a bombshell with that one. There's a lot that we got to discuss. See you tomorrow. And remember, get him, y'all.